Situational irony is when the reader is led to believe something, but it turns out to be something else instead. Nikos, I think you're going to want to find a more specific definition for what situational irony is. In this case, it's a little unclear. In the story Thank You Ma'am, a boy named Roger tries to steal from a lady named Miss Luella Bates Washington Jones and is surprisingly treated with kindness. You can see that I've changed some of your wording here in the green. The reason for that is when we're writing academic work, when we're trying to have a more professional tone, we need to eliminate things that are a little more casual. And some of that writing is a little bit casual, just in your tone of voice. Casual writing and a casual tone of voice is great for when you're writing creatively, but for professional writing, we're really looking for something a little more professional. Thank You Ma'am is a good example of situational irony because the reader thinks that Miss Luella Bates Washington Jones is going to turn Roger into the police, but she then gives him $10 and sends him on his merry way. So into in space 2 is really what you want. And the part where she gives him $10 and sends him on his merry way. That's a little bit, that's a casual tone of voice I was talking about. So you might want to change that. In the story, Roger tries to be sneaky to try and steal from Mrs. Jones. Really what that first sentence needs to be is just, again, a restatement that there is situational irony. Maybe you could try to differentiate it from the thesis statement by saying roughly where in the story it takes place. So at the end. After Mrs. Jones gives Roger food, she begins to send him away. Before he leaves, the text says. Right, so this is basically just to summarize all the summary that you had. We were really looking for something that's a little bit more concise. And then we get to your quote, which is, when they were finished eating, she got up and said, "Now here, take this $10 and buy yourself some blue suede shoes." This illustrates situational irony because we thought Mrs. Jones would punish Roger. However, what we got instead was Mrs. Jones. Instead, Mrs. Jones gives him money, which the reader didn't expect. And again, I just made those small changes to help the flow of the essay and to eliminate that casual voice. In the story Thank You Ma'am, the story illustrates situational irony because. So you hear how you have that in the story, the story. That's a little repetitious. We don't really need that. You might just say the story Thank You Ma'am illustrates situational irony because Mrs. Jones surprises the reader by, right? And then again, you want to just summarize in a very simple, general way. You want to say something like surprise the reader by treating Roger with kindness when he probably deserved more harsh punishment or something like that. This story gives a life lesson saying that if you want something you can't get, maybe you should do things that will get you money instead of going the extra mile and trying to steal something. So I'm going to go ahead and disagree with you there. I don't think the theme of the story is get a job. I think the theme of the story is kindness has the power to change people because that's exactly what Mrs. Jones does, right, to Roger through that situational irony. So when you can find a way to phrase that, that should be the last thing that you talk about in your essay. And then, of course, the last thing I'm going to say, Nikos, is when we're doing academic writing, just like we want to have a more professional tone of voice, we also need to make sure it looks professional. So while your impact font is pretty cool, it needs to be Times New Roman or Arial, just so that it looks nice and professional. Please also make sure that you go through and check things like spelling and capitalization. I saw a few errors to that effect. All right, Nikos, if you have any questions about anything, I'd be happy to explain my comments to you. Please make sure that you fix everything that I not only wrote down, but anything I said in this video as well. So you might need to rewatch this video once or twice to make sure you get everything. Other than that, this looks all right, and I look forward to reading the final draft, sir.